In this video, I'm going to show you my exact audio workflow for corporate events using a Midas MR18 connected with a Behringer X Touch control surface and controlling everything with my iPad through the M Air app. Let's get into it. So as you can see right here, I'm on my iPad, and the first thing we want to do, since I'm connecting everything through a router, let's go ahead and bring this into gear. So I've got a Netgear router right here where I have the X Touch connected to through this black Ethernet, and then I have the Midas MR18 right here, which isn't too relevant. Here it is right there, and I have all of that being routed to that Netgear, so everything talks seamlessly. So the first thing that we want to do on the iPad is we want to go to settings, go to Wi-Fi, and we want to select Netgear 32. And that, once you have everything connected and you connect the password and everything through your Netgear, that's going to allow you to open up the app, the M Air app, and be able to control everything through your iPad. Okay, now that we are connected, it is going to tell you that we have no internet connection, but that's fine because we have no intentions of using any internet here. So what we're going to do, scroll over, we're going to go ahead and click on the M Air app, and right here, once we pop up, our console is going to pop up right there, as the console and the iPad are connected to the same IP address. So once we have that loading up, we're going to go ahead and click on it, and boom, just like that. Okay, so now that we have everything connected here, let's go ahead and walk through exactly how I like to have my app set up when I'm doing corporate events. So you can see right here that I just loaded a previous show, and I actually labeled it YouTube. You could see your layers right here, and if you actually select layers, you can go in and you could select all channels. Now you can see I've got all channels right here, and I could scroll through it. Or you could go here and just look at 1 through 8, and it'll just show you 1 through 8. And then obviously you could do that for everything else that you want. And then down here, you could actually see exactly what shows that you had saved, and load that show up after you've used it before. So I've got a few of these shows here that I've looks like these are being a little strange here. There we go. That looks better. So there's a few shows here, so you can go ahead and load that and do whatever you want to do. It's kind of bugging out there, but if we go up to here to setup, and then we go to layout, then in this layers tab, you could see exactly where everything is. And right now we are on YouTube, and this is going to show you exactly the setup that I had on a previous event that I did. Now over here is a Scribble strip. This is where you can change the color and the name of any one of your channels, your FX, your FXs, your auxes, your mains, and your buses right there. So if you want to adjust the name of anything, you can just go right into there. So settings, layout, and then Scribble strips, and you could change everything that you want in this little section here. So right here, you could see in here, I've got 1 through 4 and then 5 through 8. These are the RFs, or the frequencies, not the frequencies, the channels that I had. I had 8 different lavaliers and handhelds for this previous event. And then I also had the podium, Mac left and Mac right. Now I will usually say playback or graphics when I have Macs on an iPad like this and I'm using this console, but for the scenario, for the event that we had, it was honestly just easier for me to do Mac left and Mac right, which is why it's labeled that way on this show. And then right here in yellow, I always like to have my sends in yellow, but you could see right here, so I've got bus 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 6 right there, which is my subgroup, which we'll talk about momentarily. And so yeah, so there's all your bus groups. So you can see everything that you're using. So you've got all of your inputs right here, 1 through 11, and then you've got your bus sends where you're sending all of your different channels to, and then your mains that are right here. So let's go back. And let's very quickly go through the setup here. Now, if you're new to using these consoles, they do offer this app. That I'm using the M Air app because I'm using a Midas MR18. But if you are using the XR18 or XR12 and are using an Android device, some sort of Samsung tablet or something, I did a video on that a few years ago, which I'll link up above here, so you can go ahead and watch that. It's a very in-depth tutorial of how I like to have things set up and how everything works inside of the app, the X Air app, through Android or the Google Play Store. In this video, we're just going to be going over a brief overview of how you could use this with an iPad. First thing that we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to start right here and show you exactly what everything is. So you can see right here in the top corner, this is your input. So if I go ahead and I click that, it brings you to this page where you could then adjust your mic input, add phantom power, and then you could also link it to another channel. So if I wanted to link 1 and 2, yes and no, you could do that. You could see if things are out of phase, and basically you could add a high pass filter on there as well. And then going back, then the next thing that we have here is we have all of your bus sends. So the 1 through 6 is right here in the yellow, and then obviously this blank strip that I have where I don't have anything, those are actually your FX sends. So if we go and click on that, this is going to show us exactly. So right now you can see this blue kind of trim around the perimeter of this channel. So that's how you know that you're on this specific channel, and you could do that for each one of those. So now that we're on channel 1, this shows you, and we're on sends, this shows you exactly what you are sending to each different bus, right? So right here is bus 1, which is video, and I'm sending 100%, so plus 10 dB. And then obviously I've got lobby H6 delay, which is lobby H6 delay, nothing on 5, and then 6 is Lav Sub. And then this blank space that I was talking about right here, right underneath everything, right underneath everything is actually your effect sends right here. So if you're actually sending an effect to a channel, this is what you would do. You also have the ability to change. So if I wanted to make channel 1, instead of it being post EQ, if I just want it to be post, I could press it right here, or if I just want it to be a subgroup and then you turn it on, this essentially will give you what a subgroup is that it's basically just giving you 100% of that channel. So I usually just like to have everything on either post or post EQ. Now, if you do run into some issue, there have been times where I've ran into issues when one of my channels was on post EQ and I didn't have any control over the fader. So if you do run into an issue where it says post EQ, just change it to post, similar to what I did on 6 right here. This was actually in post EQ, and I had no control over that specific channel going to the Lav Sub until I changed it to post, and then I had the the control back. Just one thing for you to keep in mind. Okay, so then once we go back, so we just talked about the sends, we could go back. The next thing that we have, if I could click the back button, next thing that we have here is your gate. So then if we go ahead and click gate, that gives you all your abilities to use a gate and reduce anything that you want for that specific channel. Then next down there, we have the dynamic, and that gives you your ability to put a compressor on somebody, however large or small you want to do it. You can also add in your attack and release over here if you so choose to. Honestly, I've had mighty fine luck with just adjusting my threshold and my ratio and my knee, and everything has worked out pretty fine with that. Then we go back, the next thing that we have is EQ, and then that brings up this channel right here, so you can see your channel, you have everything here. You could also have your RTA, so if we go ahead and click that on or off, you could kind of see something happening down there, but since I don't have any microphones connected, it's not going to show anything here. But this is your EQ. You have the ability to adjust the gain right there. Then you can adjust the width of it. That's your Q. And then you can also adjust the frequency however you see fit. And then the last thing that we have down there is the pan, where you could then, pan things all the way left, all the way right. And then you also have the ability to put it into a DCA group, and also you can put it into a mute group right there. Plus you have your Automix ability. So if you see right here on channel 1, I have an X selected, or like there's an X popped up right here. Now if I click X right over here, it's going to go away. So now this channel is no longer auto mixing when I have certain channels open. So I'll go ahead and I can click Y. If I can click Y, and then you could kind of see it popping up right there. It's kind of hard to see, but then, you know, you could go back to X and you got X all over here. So that's what I like to do when I have a lot of people up on stage. You know, if I have all of these open, and you've got 8 wireless lavaliers open on stage, it's really nice to have the auto mix feature. So when certain people aren't talking, their microphone is essentially turned off until, you know, it goes above a certain threshold, which then opens up the gate. That's kind of how it works. Okay, so from there, we can go back, and that is essentially showing you exactly what everything is right there. Now, if you select any one of those here, so if we select on our sends here, you could see that we have the ability to go into each one of those that we were just on. Now, the one thing that we didn't do, we didn't talk about inserts. We went to EQ and then we went to pan, which was an output, but then you also have inserts right here where you can insert any one of your effects, a delay, a reverb, whatever you want to do. And then we have presets right here, and that's basically just your channel preset, different channels that you have set up, and shows that you have set up right here. So not terribly important. So now that we've gone through this entire strip here, I know this is a different feel than what it is on Android. I think they're completely different makers, people who are creating these apps. They're totally different. So if you're used to the Android and you move over to the iPad version, it is going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but that's what I hope that I could show you in this video here. So, okay, so now that we've gone through everything on one specific channel, your input, your sends, your gate, dynamic, EQ, pan, and everything, let's go over here to Automix to the top right corner here. So you can see right here that you could turn on your auto mix. So if we turn on X right there, you can see that all of those just turned on the channels that I have auto mix selected. And then below that, you also have your mute groups. So if I go into channel 1 and I go into output, you could see right here that I have channel 1 selected on mute group number 1. So if I turn that off, it might have been hard to see it, but now you could kind of tell that that is it looks a little different. But if I turn that back on, now it's back on mute group number 1. So what I like to do, depending on how many people that you have on stage, is I like to have, you know, since I had 8 wireless channels, I'd like to have 1 through 4 on mute group 1, and then 5 through 8 on mute group 2, and then I selected whichever one I decided to select, which I believe was podium, on mute group 3, and then I believe, I'm not even sure I did mute group 4. I didn't even do a mute group 4, but I could have put both of the max on mute group 4 if I chose to. So you can decide however you want to do it, depending on what works better for you and what feels more comfortable when you're doing an event. Okay, so now that we've done the mute groups, let's go back here, and then you've got your layers that we talked about right there. So let's briefly go over these strips right here on the right here. So right now you can see I'm on the mains, and this is giving me control over everything on the main page. So this is everything that I can do that will affect what I'm sending to the house. Now, if we go down to this button right here, which is bus 1, now you can see every channel that I'm sending to bus 1. Don't mind the yellow stuff right here. These are actually the bus sends, so these aren't going to change. But you can see here 1 through, that's 8, 9, 10, 11. You can see exactly what I'm sending to bus 1 and how much. So if I wanted to send less of this to bus 1, channel 1 to bus 1, I could do that. If I wanted to adjust these guys a little bit, I could do that as well. And then you could see the yellow bar in the channel right above, right up here. You could see that being shifted, and that's showing you how much you are sending to that specific channel. So pretty cool. And then all of these will increase, as you can see right there as well. And then you could do the same thing for bus 2, you know, bus 3, bus 4, bus 5, and everything that you are sending to your buses, it'll show up right there. Now always make sure that you do go back to your mains. You want to make sure that you are actually making adjustments to the house on your mains. I know I've been lost in different folders and different groups before, like on a QU24, on an SQ5. I've definitely been lost in the sends before, thinking that I was doing stuff to the house when I was actually just messing around with one of my sends. So definitely make sure that if you are going to start selecting all these things right here, that you do get back up to your mains to make sure that you are on your main page there. Okay, so now that we have that set up, one thing I do want to talk about is the Lav Sub, which is bus 6 right here. So in this scenario, and I don't do this for every event, but because where this event was, it was in this room that was just, tile, glass, and drywall. When you have an event space like that, you definitely want to make sure that your EQs are set up properly to mitigate the risk of having any feedback. So the way that I do this and the way that I was taught from my mentor was to essentially double EQ specific channels. And so when I have 8 lavaliers on stage in a very bouncy room, I like to send everything to a subgroup. So RF 1 through 8, I sent everything to Lav Sub to a subgroup, and then I went and I EQ'd. I had my business partner and a contractor on stage helping me EQ the room. And so basically what I did is I just took out all the nasty frequencies when I essentially sent their input gain pretty high, and then I increased the fader as high as it went, and then I increased the Lav Sub fader as much as I could too, and also took the gains and sent those pretty high, a lot higher than I would originally, to really find all of those nasty frequencies that we want to pull out. And so in this room, you could see that I had to pull out a lot of stuff. I mean, this thing is pretty hacked, but it's not terrible. I've seen way worse than this, but this is a good I guess plan of attack, if you will, to make sure that you can get really good clean audio out of your microphones without having to hack your main. So if you could see here, this is a scenario that I was messing around with in the previous video that I recorded. But what I usually do is I usually like to have my mains completely flat, and then I will send, all of my lavaliers into this subgroup so it is EQ'd before it goes to the mains. And so one thing that you can do here is once you go into a specific channel, you can go to output right here and see how I have it set to not on left, right. So if I click that button, you can now see the difference. So now channel 1 is going directly to the mains, and if I unclick that, it is no longer going to the mains. So what I did to allow this to happen is when I sent this channel to this subgroup, I made this subgroup, the subgroup's output to the mains. So what you would do is you would turn off the main output to this specific channel, and you would go to your sends, and in bus 6 where I have it, you would send that as much as you want. I usually do a full, send it all the way to bus 6, and then bus 6 is the one that goes to the mains. So that is how you would get your channels to the mains without it being stuck in a subgroup that doesn't go out, right? So if you look at video, so video is not going to the mains, lobby's not going to the mains, H6 isn't going to the mains, and delays are not going to the mains, because that would cause a lot of issues if that were the case. But so if you want to do this, which I always recommend you do depending on your venue, is to essentially double EQ it, which is, you take your channel that you have, you take your however many lavaliers that you have, send them to a bus group or an aux send or a bus send, whatever you want to call it, and then you can EQ that subgroup and then take that subgroup and send it to the mains. And that's exactly what we did here. So right here you could see RF1 or channel 1 is being sent to subgroup 6 in post, and then subgroup 6 its output is now being sent to the mains, which then goes to the mains. So that's one thing that has definitely helped me in certain scenarios, especially in that room that we were in, because it's literally glass, tile, and drywall, which can cause a lot of issues. Now, you don't have to do that for every scenario, especially if you're like in a hotel ballroom and you've got an air wall up and you've got carpet and there's, it helps reduce or dampen the sound from it, bouncing all over the place. In a scenario like that, I probably wouldn't do it unless I was having a lot of frequency issues, which you probably wouldn't have. But in such a bright and bouncy room, this is one way that will help you mitigate the risk of having a lot of feedback. And once people go up on stage, instead of you having to like really hack their EQ, right? Now you can really just fine tune it to exactly their voice. So let's say somebody, didn't have a very deep voice, so gave them a little more low end, and then you took out some of that kind of muck that we tend to see in the 250 to 600 range right there. But that's probably a lot. You probably would only need to take out like that much, and then you just want to roll off a little bit of the highs right there, and boom, just like that, now you are fine tuning each channel to everyone's voice, because everyone's voice is different. You could hear it on this channel, like my voice is way different from somebody else's voice, and vice versa. So when you have people on stage, this allows you, and when you have people on stage and you are doing like the double EQ through the bus send, this allows you to really fine tune each EQ on each specific channel to the person's voice. And I think that's kind of it. I mean, this is basically what I have here, right? So the podium, the output I'm sending to the mains, because I didn't think that there was a reason for me to send the podium to the Lav Sub. When you have like a Shure or some sort of Sennheiser podium, it's going to sound really good on its own, and you probably don't have to EQ it that much. So let's see what I had here. So look, there you go. You could see that I didn't really have much happening on the podium because it sounds pretty good. And then on the max, you know, I didn't have anything there. I might have had, yeah, I think I did roll off a little low end because we had some pretty crazy videos that we were playing. And then you could obviously add your dynamics. Didn't have anything there. Didn't have anything there. Podium, I had some dynamics. But overall, this is how I like to have things set up, depending on which venue and what the venue is, right? Everything's different in each scenario, and in each job, each venue, each gig, everything is different for the most part, depending on where you're working and who you're working with. But for this specific venue and for this event, when you have 8 lavaliers on stage and you're in a very bouncy, bright room, that is where I want to send things to a subgroup and EQ that subgroup, and then send that subgroup to the mains, instead of just having my EQ, my channel 1 being sent to the mains and then only really being able to EQ channel 1, because I like to have my mains flat. If you have any questions about how I have this set up, or if you have any questions about the Behringer X Touch or the Midas MR18 or this app in general, please leave a comment below and I'd be happy to answer it for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.